Hey everybody, welcome, welcome to Hidden Horror. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate that. Let's get started. Hey everybody, how y'all doing? Good evening. Welcome to Hidden Horror. So, as I explained in my prior video that I just did on Andre Gordon, I'm in a different space today. I had some work that I had to do, some videos I had to do regarding a scholarship or just scholarship resources, opportunities, things like that. So I have wanted to have a different background setting. So that's why I'm here and not in my typical space. But let's get to it. You guys, I wish I just had so much more time to spend with you. I really enjoy sharing this information, sharing my viewpoint. And I kind of went back a little bit in time. I don't know if everyone remembers the pure tragedy that happened in Texas. I believe this was in 2022. It was the shooting at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas. I I kind of went back to that a little bit in my mind because I know that we've just come across this landmark decision with James and Jennifer Crumbley being prosecuted for a level of homicide, being both convicted. And we need answers. We want answers. We want to know, how could this have happened? We look to the parents, we look to the school system, we look to all of the administrators, people that are involved in the rearing, the teaching of our youth, right? The reason I'm bringing up the shooting in Uvalde, Texas at Robb Elementary is because it's such a contrast to what happened in the Oxford High School mass shooting. So Robb Elementary was an elementary school, and of course Oxford High School was a high school, right? But that's not the just so different response. I feel that with the shooting in Uvalde, Texas at Robb Elementary, I feel that the way that the shooter came upon the school, that there were 911 calls immediately after he crashed the vehicle and walked over to the school. There were 911 calls. There should have been a very swift, a very quick police presence. I feel that the teachers, the students that were calling 911, just the amount of time that it took for not just the police to arrive, but to take action, to get into the school, to set up a perimeter, to engage the shooter, to go from classroom to classroom, trying to get the students out, not having the keys timely to unlock the doors, having a universal key to unlock any door. And then from a review, it was believed that the classroom that the shooter was in, classroom 112, was not even, the door was not even locked. There was a lot of time spent looking, searching for the key. And I believe, and this is no dig to law enforcement, but I believe there was a lot of fear because the shooter at the time, he had a very powerful weapon. And there was just fear that, hey, if we rush into this space and we don't have any barriers, no way to protect ourselves, to cover from these shots, we're going to be unalive. And it just didn't happen. And time went by, minutes went by, precious time, when law enforcement is expected to immediately engage the shooter with force, with threat. It just didn't happen in Uvalde. And when I think about Oxford High School and how the teachers responded, how they were able to close the doors, how they were able to lock them, how even the assistant principal engaging Ethan, asking him was he okay when he walked past. Uvalde was very different. The shooter went into a classroom, possibly locked the door, shot the teacher, unalive. I believe the total was 19 children, and law enforcement. This happened early on when the shooting first happened, when it first started. It would just seem to me that there could have been more damage. He had dropped multiple clips, multiple uh, bullets, where it would have been extremely higher number if he had not just dropped them by accident. Um, I think the failure to engage, the failure to try to isolate that threat, um, I can't judge them harshly because they were trying to get the other students out. But I believe there was some fear in law enforcement, which I believe is reasonable, but also not engaging the shooter. I think taking so much time, over an hour, I think that gave the shooter opportunity to unalive more people, more victims. And they did everything right. They were told to hide, to be quiet. Um, would he have went throughout the school as Ethan did in the Oxford high school mass shooting to search for victims, to try to unalive more people? If he did not like hunker down in that classroom 112, we don't know, because Ethan, he searched for victims. He went into the bathroom. There was not a lot of people left in the hallways during the exchange once the shooting started. They ran. They locked those doors. They closed him out. They shut him out. But it could have been much worse in the Uvalde, Texas shooting. I think about all of that because that is extreme loss, tragedy, horror. I cannot even imagine the psychological effects, the impact on all of those families that were outside waiting, that wanted to go in, wanted to get their kid, get them out of there, and just wondering, what is law enforcement doing? Why is this taking so long? Why aren't they engaging this shooter? Um, Especially and in particular with the 911 calls, extremely gut wrenching, heartbreaking, horror, terror, um, fear, frightening. Um, I shared a video. PBS did a special connection with Frontline. They did a special on the Uvalde, Texas shooting, and they really covered a lot of different aspects. They covered the law enforcement aspect and showing the video and the time and the delay, and showing how everything kind of happened and proceeded with the shooting, the decisions that were made, the decisions that were not made, talking both to um, really educate and identify some of the mistakes, some of the things that they can improve, particularly in law enforcement. Um, it's just a lot. So I just wanted to bring that up before I tell you why I'm here, which is really to talk about James Crumbley. But I just wanted to bring that up again to always have us in the know, be prepared with the knowledge. This is an education platform first and primarily. So I just wanted to bring that up. I shared that along with what we're going to talk about tonight, which is James Crumbley. And guess what? You're not going to believe this. I was just stunned. So I did a video probably about a week to 2 weeks ago about James Crumbley allegedly making these threats from prison through either using the messaging or the jailhouse privileges. Well, it has now come out since his trial is over. He's been convicted. And he has a sentencing next month, that those threats were allegedly towards the prosecuting attorney, Karen McDonald. And I was just like stunned. This is very serious. Is Mr. Crumbley going to receive additional charges for those threats? Let's talk about it, okay? So we're going right to a credible source. Check out the link, NBCnews.com. The article is dated March 19. It's titled Michigan School Shooter's Father Allegedly Threatened to Destroy the Prosecutor in the Case Against Him. The writers are Selena Guevara and Alan Cohen. The Oakland County Prosecutor's Office said Wednesday that James Crumbley threatened the prosecutor by name, warning her what was going to happen to her when he is released. Oof. The prosecutor who brought a historic conviction against the father of the Oxford High School shooter says he directly threatened her in jailhouse phone calls. It's like, dun, dun, dun. Like, what? Are you just completely unaware? You can't do that. Okay, let's continue. The Oakland County Prosecutor's Office said in a statement Wednesday that James Crumbley, 47, made threats that addressed Prosecutor Karen McDonald by name about what would happen to her after his release from jail. People, listen up. You cannot on a recorded line threaten the prosecutor. Okay, it's not a secret, but I'm telling you like it's a secret because you can't do that. You can't do that. I'm not even sure like where that mindset is that when you get out, so you're saying that when I am released from prison, allegedly, this is what you're saying, you're going to cause some kind of harm to the prosecuting attorney at the age of 47? Like, you know better than this. Let's continue. Those threats are serious and they also reflect a lack of remorse and a continued refusal to take accountability for his part in the deaths of Hannah, Madison, Tate, and Justin, the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office said in its statement. Let me read that to you. I'm going to grab my microphone so y'all can hear it good. Listen up. This reflects a lack of remorse and a continued refusal to take accountability. Thank you. I just wanted y'all to hear that clearly. It really is disheartening. It's upsetting. It's really mind-blowing that the position would be to allegedly make a threat against the prosecuting attorney. First off, this is her job. This is her responsibility. She has a responsibility to seek justice, to advocate on behalf of the state if there has been some harm. And she's proven her case 3 times over. But again, you cannot make these types of alleged threats. You can't do that. Even if you're upset, even if you feel it's unfair, appeal it. Use all of your rights, apply all of your rights, use all of the resources that's offered to you. But one thing you cannot do is out of anger and frustration is make threats. Okay, let's continue. A Michigan jury last week found Crumbley guilty on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter for the shooting his son carried out, killing 4 classmates in a Detroit suburb. Crumbley's defense attorney, Mario Lehman, did not immediately return a request for comment Wednesday. Crumbley and his wife, Jennifer Crumbley, who was convicted on the same charges at a separate trial in February, are the first parents in America to be charged for a school shooting committed by their child. The Oakland County Sheriff's Office said on March 7th, after the first day of testimony in his trial, that James Crumbley made threatening statements from jail, but did not provide details about the threats then. The judge signed an order earlier that day after the prosecution and defense attorneys reached an agreement to restrict his jail communications. For the rest of the trial, Crumbley could talk only to his lawyer and legitimate clergy and do research to help his defense. There's a disagreement about what was said and the nature of that stuff, Lehman said Monday, before details about the nature of the threats became public. She declined to expand on her characterization of Crumbley's conversations and added that lawyers on each side agreed at trial to try to keep it out of the media. Both parents are set to be sentenced April 9th. The prosecutor's office now says the Oakland County Sheriff's Office is investigating the threats, which will be included in a sentencing memorandum the prosecutors plan to file. So what they're saying, they can use this against him in his sentencing guidelines. You know, making threats, that's just not a good decision. That's not, be of good character, be of good morals. Like, don't take these type of steps if you're frustrated. Try to find other ways, work harder on your case. Try to receive some more support. Talk about things that you could possibly do versus go this route and make these types of decisions, okay? So let's continue on. Sources close to the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office confirmed to NBC News earlier in the week that Crumbley allegedly told his sister over the course of multiple jailhouse phone calls that he was going to make it his goal in life to destroy McDonald. He said he wanted to ruin her, that she was going to hell soon, that she better be scared, and that she was done, according to sources. Let me read that back one more time in the microphone. Okay, in my microphone. Allegedly, he told his sister over the course of multiple jailhouse phone calls that he was going to make it his goal in life to destroy McDonald. He wanted to ruin her. She was going to hell soon. She better be scared, and that she was done. I can't make this up. I would never make up anything like this. Let's continue. Those details of the threats were first reported Monday by the Detroit Free Press. Asked about the threats on March 15th, McDonald said that he made a lot of threats, but that she didn't want to elaborate because she didn't want to give him more attention. I just don't think it's important to talk about, McDonald said then. The Crumbley son killed 4 students: Madison Baldwin, 17, Tate Meir, 16, Hannah St. Juliana, 14, and Justin Schilling, 17, and wounded 7 other people when he opened fire with a handgun November 30th, 2021. Crumbley had bought the Sig Sauer 9mm handgun days before The shooter used it, and prosecutors say it wasn't kept secured. McDonald last week called the facts egregious and said that the shooting was foreseeable and that the parents could have prevented it with just the smallest of efforts. At trial, school staff members testified that both the parents were called to the school the day of the shooting about a drawing their son had made depicting a gun and a person who had been shot. Neither of them told staff members he had access to a weapon, and they said they couldn't take him home, citing work. Crumbley's defense maintains he had no way of predicting that his son would start shooting hours later. He wished that he had taken his son home that day. If he had known what was going to happen, he would have made different decisions. Lehman said Monday, adding that Crumbley feels terrible about what happened to the families. The sentencing hearing will be the first time the Crumbley parents, who can't communicate with each other from jail, could potentially see each other since they attended joint hearings before their trials were separated. They each face a maximum of 15 years in prison for the involuntary manslaughter charges. Okay, I want to play. I have a couple of videos lined up. They shouldn't take more than 10 minutes, but I want you to hear from the prosecutor, Karen McDonald. I'm going to let you hear also from James Crumbley's defense attorney, and then I want you to hear from the victim's parents, what they want now, what is next in all of this, okay? Let's get started. So I have 3 videos.
I'm threatened with physical violence by the father of the Oxford High School shooter. Prosecutor Karen McDonald saying she was undeterred in fighting for victims' families. Thank you for being with us today at 5. I'm Glenda Lewis.
And I'm Brian Abel. Today, Karen McDonald addressed that and other new revelations since a guilty verdict came down from a second jury. Just last week, the shooter's father was found guilty on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. His wife found guilty on the exact same charges just last month.
And today and every day, we remember and honor the lives of Tate Meir, Madison Baldwin, Hannah St. Juliana, and Justin Schilling.
7 Action News reporter Simon Shakett shows us what more unfolded behind the scenes of the historic trial involving the first parents charged in a school mass shooting.
Today, Karen McDonald talking about her case and a guilty verdict against James Crumbley, the father of the Oxford High School shooter. She's also talking about letters given to 2 key witnesses and threats made against her.
I'm not going to let anything stop me from prosecuting and advocating for victims.
In a sit-down interview covering a range of topics following 2 separate jury trials and guilty verdicts against James and Jennifer Crumbley, Prosecutor Karen McDonald opening up about what's taken place since the deadly school shooting at Oxford High in November 2021. Both parents convicted of involuntary manslaughter for failing to secure a gun used by their son and to give ordinary care to get him help, resulting in the deaths of 4 students and others wounded.
It's about those victims. It's about those kids.
In court, McDonald personally demonstrated just one of the safeguards parents could have used but didn't.
I'm not an expert in firearms, but it took me around 10 seconds to apply the cable lock.
Since the end of trial, McDonald has confirmed threats made by James Crumbley from jail were directed at her. And while she stopped short of publicly releasing them, I asked and was granted a chance to hear them off camera. Crumbley stating he was coming for the prosecutor and referencing her going to hell.
He actually said that. He hoped I was listening. He hoped I was listening when he threatened me physically. One of the most disturbing threats was January of 24. So that was actually the same month that the first day of trial was set for.
Professor of Law at University of Detroit Mercy and former federal prosecutor Adam Wright also adding this to steps taken to keep everyone safe in court.
And the way that Karen McDonald handled this was exactly the right way. The Sheriff's Office handled this situation exactly as it should have been handled.
In court, prosecutors asked for a court order limiting Crumbley to only communicating with his attorney. Also, I asked McDonald about letters given to a counselor and a dean of students who gave key testimony.
Is there any agreement in place with anyone that they will not be prosecuted?
You know, the media reports or anyone reporting that there was some agreement they're just absolutely false. We comply with the court rules and the case law to a T. The only thing required to give to the defense, and rightly so, I stand by that, I insist that our assistant prosecutors do that, is any agreement we've made with a witness that gives them a plea.
Well, this is kind of going away from what I wanted to you guys really to hear, which is those threats were made to Prosecutor Karen McDonald. I want you to hear also the side of James Crumbley's defense attorney. I think that's also important. So let's just listen to that for maybe like 2 minutes.
We're hearing from James Crumbley's attorney, Marielle Lehman, for the first time. She spoke with NBC News, and she said that James was shocked when he heard the verdict.
We know that James didn't know what his son was planning. We know that he didn't know that his son had obtained access to the firearms, any of the firearms in the house. He wasn't aware that his son had taken a firearm that day. And we really felt that we had shown the jury that he didn't know. And he had acted based on the information that he had, and that he didn't know what his son was planning.
But we also have to think about it like this. It's not just the fact that you didn't know, you didn't properly secure the weapon. Moreover, when your child has a mental health issue, you don't give them access. You don't have the bullets and the gun in the home at all, let alone in their range where they would have access to take them. And that's what happened in this case. Unfortunately, the gun did not have any type of lock to prevent the usage. And that's how this was allowed to happen. Okay.
You heard from the jury person told the Detroit Free Press that it came down to storage of the gun and not getting Ethan mental health help.
Let me pause it. I agree completely. I already talked about properly storing the gun, securing the gun, but it's also Ethan Crumbley. He was really suffering. He was really struggling with his mental health. He asked for help. He drew it. He wrote it. He put it in his journal. He was suffering from what some may say a depression. He diagnosed himself as having paranoia, saying he wanted to call 911, but his parents would probably be upset with him. He just had a lot of issues, and they just didn't get addressed by his parents.
Oh, your thoughts on that?
I understand that was his reason, and those were issues for the jury. Obviously, we're disappointed by the verdict, but I did see the article. I do know that those were the reasons that he gave.
Do you think the outcome would have been different had James testified?
No, I don't think so. The jury heard from James. They heard him in his interviews. There were, I think, 4 videos played, and then also the 911 call. They heard from James. They heard what he would have said on the stand. So I don't think that they would have heard anything different from him than what they'd already heard.
And can you talk about what sentence you all will request next month?
I am going to be filing a sentencing memorandum where I will request a potential sentence, but I haven't done so yet. So once I file that, then we'll make the decision on what I'm asking for.
How is James doing today?
He's okay. He's disappointed, but we're taking everything one step.
I'm not going to go any further into it. She asked some more questions. She asked James Crumbley's attorney more questions about if they're communicating and things like that. If you want to watch the video, it's just another 2 or so minutes. I'm not going to take the time up here, but you can always follow the link on the Hidden Horror Facebook page. Okay. I want to go to this last video. Again, it's going to be a pretty brief video, under 3 minutes. And this is really the parents of the victims really wanting the accountability, also now looking towards the school district, the staff, the administrators. Typically, they can't really be held accountable as a school district. There is some immunity there, but the parents want to, get this awareness out, because it's not going to help them now. But in the future, if this was possibly another issue of a mass shooting, things could change. How can we improve procedures? What can we do better? Law enforcement, teachers, staff, administrators, can there be signs? Can there be some support for mental health in the school district? More support, giving them the ability to make the decision to remove a student or send them for some therapy, counseling services, etc. So I want you to hear from the victims' parents and how they feel and what they want going forward. Okay, so this is the last video.
Life without the possibility of
parole. And that's Ethan Crumbley.
Guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
That's Jennifer Crumbley. That's James Crumbley.
The Crumbley family guilty in the murders of Tate Meir, Madison Baldwin, Hannah St. Juliana, and Justin Schilling. But the families of the victims say the Crumbleys aren't the only ones who should be held accountable.
What could we have done before the shooting to prevent it? What could we have done during the shooting to stop it faster? Like, Tate was shot before the announcement came on over the PA that there was an active shooter. That's acceptable? How to blood out? What can we have done different and better to save lives?
Okay, let me just pause it here. So that's Tate Meir's dad. I think the difficulty and frustration is when there's a mass shooting, when there's any type of crime scene and law enforcement is coming onto the scene, there still has to be safety there. You have to secure that scene, making sure that there is no possible assailant out there or other assailants that could cause harm, because they're bringing in ambulances, they're bringing in emergency services, the police are coming in, and you don't want to have an assailant on the loose. And that's the same thing kind of what happened with Uvalde, Texas, and Robb Elementary. Initially, they knew it was a shooter. They really didn't know where he was. They didn't know how to get access. And they thought that the room 112 that he was in the door was locked. So there was a whole responsibility to try to keep as many people safe and out of harm's way as possible, because those AR shots could go through some of the classrooms. Some of the victims were hit because the bullets traveled from one classroom space to another. So there's also a goal of trying to secure that space, getting any potential victims out, getting them and then zoning in on the target. So if you have someone that's injured, in this case where we know one of the victims was shot and she was bleeding out, it would be great if an ambulance can just come and take them away and get them those emergency services, because you have precious minutes to render aid. But in these type of cases, it's very hard. In most crime scenes that would be considered active, you have an active shooter. This shooter has not unalived themselves or been injured in any kind of way. So you're coming upon an active crime scene. That's very different. It's hard to imagine sending in EMTs and various other medical help when you have an active shooter. You just can't risk them also being injured potentially. So I understand the frustration. I know that there are gaps in time where, you feel this took too long, these services took too long, but it is to secure and make the scene safe first so that you can bring in law enforcement, take those victims out, get them out, clear that scene, and then focus on bringing in that aid. But I do understand the frustration that the parents feel with the amount of time that was lapsed, also in Uvalde, Texas, as well as the Oxford shooting.
The family's calling on Attorney General Dana Nessel to fully investigate the systems involved, the school that had not fully implemented its own emergency operations plan, and missed the signs that a school shooting was imminent.
You know he's got access to a gun. You've got his murder plan right here in front of you. you can't recognize that he's at the top of the mountain in crisis? You had.
Okay, so I also agree with Tate Mirror's dad, because at one point when Ethan Crumbley was in school, he was looking up bullets, and he did inform the teacher that he had been to the gun range with his parents or parent. So that lets the school know, lets the teacher know, and puts them on notice that he does have a gun in the home. Now, the access, it not being properly secured, locked away, guns and bullets separated, etc. The school doesn't know all of that information. Definitely the drawing. The drawing was just very graphic. It should have triggered the ability for the school to make the decision and not make it a possibility that the child is removed. But they don't have, at this time, they didn't have the ability to forbid Mr. Ethan Crumbley from staying in class. They were very concerned about his mental health, and they didn't want him to be alone at that time. But his parents refused to take him with them, or take him home, or take him to get the help at that time of the meeting that morning, the day of the mass shooting.
All the signs in the world and all the information in the world to search the backpack, and our government can hide from it and not be accountable for it.
The families say they also want to know why paramedics didn't get to their children.
My daughter bled out.
Yeah.
Took over 30 minutes for EMTs to get into the building to her.
Yeah.
The shooter was taken into custody within 9 minutes.
There was no saving Madison. I mean, I know that. But with Hannah, I have a really hard time with that, because there was a possibility for her to be saved.
Safe storage laws haven't passed since that mass shooting, but these parents say guns are only part of the equation.
We really need to focus also on the mental health aspect of it. So what are we doing to implement these things?
We should be able to implement the right changes in order to prevent this. I mean, it's been happening too much and for too long.
There are still civil laws.
Okay, so I want to just pause it for a second. To that far left, the bald-head man, that's Justin Schilling's dad. And I agree with him. We've had so many mass shootings over the last several years in the United States that we have to, at some point, address the fact that this number has not decreased. We're having more mass shootings. In particular, we're having a lot of mass shootings in our schools, but also due to some things like mental health that's just not being addressed. We have to find new ways, and that might be through new laws being established to deal with mental health concerns before we even get to this point, where a child has access to a weapon and moreover brings that weapon to school to injure someone else. So I agree with Justin Schilling's dad.
Lawsuits and challenges to governmental immunity working their way through the courts. But these families say an investigation and answers are needed right now.
We want a full investigation so that we can get the full story of that day and drive change from it. Because we don't know what to change if we don't know the full story.
Our kids are gone. There's nothing that we're gonna do, or anybody's gonna do that bring them back. And we're here fighting for everybody else's kids so that nobody else goes through what we went through. That's ultimately what this is.
Okay. It's an extremely hard situation. I know that it can feel like, what can I do? What more can I do? And it starts with each person. It starts within a home, within a family, and this builds the community. This builds that mindset. And it also can come from the top down. You know, can we get legislation, federal legislation, state legislation, new laws, new rules, new procedures, new guidelines, new ways of handling when we see situations in the classroom, in school, any type of tip line where you can refer privately people that may be struggling, may be expressing these ideas, maybe putting this information online. Can we help law enforcement? Can we help the school districts across the country? Because they can't figure it all out. We have to work together. So I just wanted to bring this update, let you know those threats allegedly came from James Crumbley, making them towards the prosecuting attorney, Karen McDonald. Just a terrible idea, a terrible thing to do. Just compounding on what's already happening, already processing. There is enough hurt, enough trauma. In this whole case already, without adding anything in addition to what is already happening. We have to remember and keep the victims and their families in the forefront. We don't need to deal with anything outside of that, because that is enough. It's a lot. This case, it really brought a lot of national and international attention because the parents were being prosecuted. But what really should have garnered the spotlight is the mental health crisis in the United States, and the fact that people are using these automatic weapons to do these mass shootings. Okay, so Hidden Horror loves you. Please remember, take care, be well, stay safe, be savvy, all my friends. I will see you soon. Remember, Carlethia Russell, she's going to court tomorrow. She's going to court. We will bring an update. And I also just want to remind you, I have not forgotten my Idaho 4 video. I have been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of dwelling with things in the future in my content for Idaho 4. I've already kind of detailed with you in other videos how I want to start looking at the roommates individually, learning more about them. And in particular, the 2 unharmed roommates, I realized I didn't have any knowledge about them. So I want to go into a little bit deeper, find out more about them, and also wrap up my mini series. I have those 2 videos I need to put down, so I'm not forgetting that. And I can kind of lay out what's next for the Idaho 4 case. There's a lot of things going on. Brian Kohlberger, he did not get they didn't give him a preliminary hearing. They didn't get the grand jury indictment tossed. So he's moving forward in the case. I didn't think they were going to toss it. You know, the standard has always been not beyond a reasonable doubt, just probable cause. It's a lower standard. So I didn't think that would be thrown out. But also, I want to start looking more into some other things in the case. And I just have some thoughts. And, you know, I want to be thorough about this path we're on while we're investigating the Idaho 4, talking about the victims, talking about Brian Kohlberger or any assailant for that matter that could have possibly been one or multiple, as I've always said. You know, more about the physical evidence. What more do they have on Mr. Kohlberger, or what physical evidence do they have in general? Not just necessarily about Brian Kohlberger. You know, what more is it? It's hard to kind of report some of the things you're hearing because you don't know if it's concrete, you don't know if it's solid. So I try not to do that. But I had read something very interesting, and I didn't know if it was true. So I'm still on the fence about bringing it up. I don't know. I'll think about it, but I have a lot more coming. So, I will see you soon in the future video. Have a wonderful evening. Okay, everybody. Bye. Hidden Horror. We'll see you soon.